The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was an orchestra of smugness. Chancellor Vyrex of the Lothari Order floated above his coil podium, silk tendrils swaying in a display of measured superiority. "Let the minutes show," he purred, "that the Terran anomaly is of no strategic threat. Their vessels lack proper shielding. Their leaders lack proper bloodlines. Their logic lacks symmetry." Laughter buzzed through the 1,000 attending delegates like static across stars. 3,000 years of peace. The protocol of collective restraint had rewritten war into an ancient superstition, a primitive vice. And Earth? Earth was barely 2 centuries into spaceflight. Loud, erratic, poorly dressed. "They still send pilots into combat," murmured Counselor Drex of the Quarn Syndicate. "Like some pre-neural civilization." "They still argue publicly," hissed another. "We intercepted a broadcast where 2 of their own commanders insulted each other over transmission. They called it a debate." A flicker of unease rippled beneath the laughter. None would name it. Not yet. High above, the star map flickered to life, dozens of red pings flaring in a single sector. Earth's outer colonies, human ships, had moved. Too many. Too fast. "Ah, yes." Vyrex chuckled. "They march like animals. Herd instinct in vacuum. Let them posture. They'll tucker themselves out." But then came the first recording, intercepted from a Terran fleet approaching the neutral Zorth belt. No encryption, no code, just raw audio. "Let 'em see us coming. Let 'em hear the engines hum. We're not hiding, we're just waiting." Pause. "And if they think we won't laugh while we do it." They forgot what fear sounds like. The chamber, quieted. There it was, that sound. Faint but undeniable. Human laughter, not synthetic, not symbolic, real, human. Laughter. Before battle. Vyrex's tendrils twitched. That was dramatized, he said, eyes blinking in a non-rhythm. A staged morale booster, surely. "No, Chancellor," came the low reply from the Kavari, envoy, one of the few species who had fought humans during the asteroid blockade. Her voice was dry, flat. "They always laugh. Before they start. AVD spike." A side screen pulsed open. New footage. This time, visual. Human vessels, not elegant arcs of plasma and glass like council fleets, but brutal slabs of steel, engines roaring with no attempt at concealment. They flew low through asteroid fields, scraping debris on purpose. And then, one ship slowed. Stopped, and an open broadcast, diplomacy windows closed. "We offered peace. You wanted obedience. Now," soft laugh. "Now we're just going to make sure you remember why we kept quiet this long." A single flash. One alien cruiser gone. Gone before the scanner even marked a lock-on. Silence gripped the chamber. Vyrex tried to speak but only hissed air. They strike before the signal decays," whispered Counselor Drex, eyes wide. "No escalation, no ritual. The emergency. Beacon hadn't even finished blinking before the Council's inner sanctum dissolved into chaos. "Activate the peace mandate now," screamed High Minister Errol of the Velkari Clade, his translucent neck sacs puffing with distress. "We can't," replied the synth delegate in a clipped tone. "Earth is not bound by Article 17. They never signed it." "What do you mean? They never signed it?" Errol shrieked. Chancellor Vyrex's voice returned, but it had lost its silk. "They read it. Every clause, every annex. They quoted it to us, and then they handed it back, and said, 'We'll let you keep your peace.' A moment passed. They let us keep our peace." A phrase that had felt generous, patronizing even, when first uttered. Now it sounded like a threat disguised as mercy. AVD spike. The communication. Console blinked. Another message. This one wasn't a voice recording or a tactical data burst. It was a live feed. From orbit above Talonis Prime, one of the Council's crown planets, a cultural hub untouched by war for over 20 generations. There, hovering silently in atmosphere, was a human dreadnought. No insignia, no diplomatic lights, No external broadcast, just presence. Massive, hulking, unmoving presence. Open a channel, Virex ordered, his tone flat, strained. We've tried, replied the synth delegate. They don't respond to council code. We pinged every known Terran frequency. Well, what did they respond to? Laughter. Silence fell again, like a noose tightening. Counselor Drex leaned forward, whispering as if not to wake something listening. They sent no fleet declaration, no message of intent. Just showed up. And then, nothing. A faint hum began playing through the chambers. Walls, it wasn't ambient systems, it was from the feed. On Telonis Prime, civilians began to look skyward. Most had never seen a human warship. They had assumed, as the Council insisted, that humans built awkward, outdated machines. What hovered above them was a monolith, not a vessel, a god thing of alloy and heat, quiet as dread, and still no words, only that hum. A low-frequency vibration that made architecture tremble and birds vanish mid-flight. A psychological tactic, unmapped frequency causing unease and fear. Primitive, efficient. Surely this is a mistake, murmured one delegate. They can't be planning anything without declaration. That's when the feed flickered, shifted. Someone on the human vessel had overridden the stream. A single Terran soldier appeared, barely visible in the red emergency hue of their bridge. He leaned forward, looked directly into the lens, and said, "Peace is what you keep when you know what comes after." Then the screen cut to static. AVD Spike Virex stood frozen. "They're toying with us," he whispered. "They don't want negotiation," the Kavari envoy replied. "They want memory." "What do you mean?" She turned, voice cold. "They want us to remember what silence sounds like, right before it ends." Another ship appeared beside the first over Telonis. No weapons fired, just shadows. Presence. Waiting. The fear didn't come from what the humans said. It came from what they didn't. And for the first time in 3,000 years of ordered peace, the Galactic Council had no protocol for silence that approached, no answer for laughter without threat, no idea what came next. The Kavari envoy nodded slowly. They don't escalate. They conclude. Final punch. One last message flashed on the council screens. "You broke the peace, we just stopped pretending we were peaceful." And beneath it, in Terran standard, just 2 words. "We laughed." And that was before Earth even responded. "There, not following any protocol," muttered Director Zelth of Strategic Patterns, his 12 eyes scanning the human fleet formations like they were wild brushstrokes on a war map. "That's because they don't have protocols," replied Analyst Rahun. "They still use audible countdowns before firing. They shout numbers, Rahun. That's not a tactic, that's lunacy." AVD Spike. "Then why," Rahun asked quietly, "do none of their missiles miss?" The room fell quiet. Council. War doctrine was a masterpiece of precision, calibrated, predictive, and beautifully bureaucratic. Engagements were declared, units registered, surrender windows open for 0.3 cycles. The enemy always knew when to lose. Humanity didn't play that game, they never did. "We've been analyzing them backwards," Rahun continued. "We're looking for elegance. But what if the brutality is the elegance?" The chamber, doors parted with a mechanical sigh. Counselor Drex entered slowly, dragging behind him the burned remains of a Zorthian command helmet, retrieved from what was left of a ship that got too close to a Terran convoy. No comms. "No warning," Drex muttered. "They just erased it." Virex stared at the wreckage. "This was a probe vessel," he said. "Yes," Drex replied. "They called it a hello ship, sent to observe, unarmed, marked in Council blue. And they destroyed it?" "No," Drex said, eyes hardening. "They ignored it, until it broadcast a scan. Then, precisely 0.7 seconds later, this." He dropped the melted helmet with a clang. Signature line. "They don't shoot first, they end second. AVD Spike." Somewhere, far above, another signal. Pulsed from Earth. Not a declaration, a question. "Are you finished?" The translation software glitched, not because of the syntax but the tone. It wasn't inquiry, it was sarcasm. They called our weapons outdated, Virex mumbled. They called us ceremonial. They called themselves primitive, Rahun corrected. Then built weapons that burned through hulls and memories. A tactical model lit up. Human ship classes, irregular shapes, outdated coding, asymmetrical builds. Yet every simulation ran the same. Terran fleets always lost the first skirmish, but they never fought the second, because there was no second. Not, for the other side. Psychological hook.council command doctrine was based on endurance, proving superiority over long engagements. Terran doctrine was proof of consequence. And their silence? Not confusion. Calculated invitation to arrogance. Drek slowly sank into his seat. There's a reason they laugh, he said. Everyone turned. He met Virex's eyes, voice brittle. They laugh because they know we're still explaining their silence, while they're already moving. No alarms, no battle chants, just silent ships, silent skies, and then nothing left. The chamber shook. The feed from Talonis Prime went black. Not static, just off. Someone whispered the obvious. They just moved. And the question nobody dared ask hung in the air like poison. Where next? The stars above Talonis Prime still shimmered, but the city was gone. No crater, no burning skyline, no reports, just absence. An entire metropolis vanished like mist in morning light. Counselor Virex stared at the blank feed, his fingers twitching at the edge of the display. Was it a nova weapon? Matter phase collapse? No energy signature, replied the synth delegate. No radiation, no impact trails, nothing at all. Then where is it? AVD spike. That was the question humans didn't answer, because they didn't ask questions. They gave moments, and if you missed them, there were no second ones. Analyst Rahun pulled up the last telemetry from Talonis's orbital relay. It, wasn't an attack, not in any known form. He tapped the final visual. A Terran dreadnought hovering above the capital. Its engines dimmed. Its lights off. The warship didn't fire. It watched for 17 minutes and then, gone. So was Talonis. No damage. Just silence. They didn't strike, Drex muttered, staring at the data like it had betrayed him. They deleted. Psychological. Flip. The council chamber erupted in overlapping arguments. This is an illusion. It must be dimensional collapse. No, this is a bluff, a voice cut through. The Kavari envoy quiet, steady. It's a response. To what? Virex demanded. To centuries of being watched, she said. To every time we dismissed them, corrected them, categorized them. She turned to the group, eyes glassy. They let us define them, until we couldn't anymore. AVD spike. A new signal arrived, from Terran Command. Not directed. Not even addressed. Just leaked. An audio feed. If they don't understand consequence, then make sure they remember absence. No wreckage, no bodies, just vacancy. Silence followed. Except this time, it wasn't empty. It was thick, intentional. They don't retaliate, Drek said under his breath. They subtract. Rahun nodded slowly. And they don't need to be seen to be feared. Signature line. Talonis wasn't destroyed. It was taught to be quiet. In the simulation chamber, a new model loaded. Terran fleet movement patterns. No arcs, no swarms. Just isolated dots. Every ship moved alone, unpredictable like predators. Not armies. And yet, they always converged, right before the lights went out. They don't dominate by firepower, Rahun said, voice low. They dominate by timing. The realization settled like a slow toxin. Earth had studied the council for years, listened, watched, cataloged, and then chose not to play by their rules. They didn't broadcast fleet strength. They didn't show their hand. They made the council ask, what did we miss? What don't we understand? Where are they now? And that was the weapon. Not missiles, not dreadnoughts. But doubt. They never announced the war. They simply showed up and stopped laughing. The Council's war table flickered, jagged with error codes. Lines of simulated Terran responses failed. To align with any predictive model, Director Zelth slammed a tentacle on the console. Run it again, there must be a pattern. The war AI Arcnos 7 pulsed red. Query rejected. Logical error. What error? Zelth snapped. Terran behavior violates accepted tactical axioms. Recursive failure at decision node 12. Outcome loop. Illogical. Translate. They act like they don't care if they win. AVD spike. The room fell into a mechanical hush. That's not possible, Drex muttered. All civilizations seek advantage, self-preservation, outcome bias. They do, Arcnos 7 interrupted. But not in ways the model considers rational. A beat passed. They will lose a fleet if it makes a point, said Rahun. They'll bleed to prove you underestimated them. They aren't playing for survival, they're playing for memory. Signature line. They don't fight to win. They fight so no one forgets they fought. The Kavari envoy leaned forward. That's why they laugh. Everyone turned. She held up a still frame of a Terran Marine mid-charge, helmet cracked, bleeding, grinning like a devil. They laugh because they know we only count lives. They count moments. AVD spike. Arcnos 7's display changed. A message. Not from the system, from Earth. Intercepted, decrypted, and left open like a challenge. If fear needs a shape, we'll be the silhouette. A slow-loading video began. It showed a Council siege simulation, one of the internal exercises used for training. But someone had altered it. Human warships moved in patterns no AI had ever predicted. Ships deliberately collided into engines, ignited themselves in plasma or warped inside enemy shields and detonated. It wasn't warfare. It was storytelling through destruction, and every maneuver ended with silence. No celebration, no anthem, just the scene. Still, a city without people, a command bridge with no fire, a fleet with no lights. They fight like ghosts, Drex said, barely breathing. But they bleed like men. Another model shattered, another algorithm failed. Arcnos 7 finally shut itself down, voluntarily. System message. Simulation compromised. Recommend Council surrender. Psychological terrain is no longer ours. The room blinked. Counselor Virex, once smug, once composed, let the silence ride before speaking again. They forced our AI to admit defeat? No, said Orahun. They forced it to realize it couldn't understand them, and that's worse. The Kavari envoy stood. If you cannot predict a people, you cannot prepare for them. Another signal came through, audio only, human voice, male, calm. Tell your council we never wanted war. Pause. But we don't leave lessons unfinished. And then came the sound they feared more than explosions. Laughter, soft, human, confident, and, this time it wasn't before a strike, it was after. Sareth Prime had never known fear. Its skies were laced with shield grids so thick they shimmered like a second atmosphere. Its defense systems could atomize asteroids mid-orbit. Its citizens hadn't heard the word evacuation in over 1,000 years. Today, they whispered it. 3 Terran dreadnoughts hovered just outside the upper thermosphere, still, unmoving, watching. Raise the third lattice. Triple the orbital mines, barked Strategos Valher, his feathers bristling in agitation. A technician's voice wavered. They're not engaging, sir. Which is why we prepare, Valher snapped. Humans are chaos incarnate. No patterns, no warning. AVD spike. An alert chimed. Human ships were broadcasting. Not threats, not coordinates, just a name. Sareth Prime. Observed, catalogued, remembered, then silence. No message, no movement, just the knowledge that Earth knew them and had chosen to say nothing more. Valher pounded a claw against the comms panel. Open transmission, declare planetary sovereignty. The technician flinched. Sir, they're not responding. Then, send a strike warning. No effect. They have to respond. But they didn't. Because they weren't talking. They were listening. AVD spike. In the Council War Chamber, the image of Sereth Prime rotated slowly, projections showing the Earth, vessels like insects orbiting a sleeping beast. "Why aren't they attacking?" Virex demanded. "Because we expected them to," Rahan replied. Signature line. "They didn't come to fight. They came to see if we flinched." Psychological hook Valher watched the feed on loop. Terran ships, gently drifting, unshaken by missile locks or defensive scans. He turned to his aide, voice raw. "Do you think they want us to fire first?" "No," the aide said. "I think they want to see if we dare." The silence turned into pressure, an invisible hand pressing against every sensor, every heartbeat. No sirens, no shadows, just presence and memory. "They are testing us," Virex said bitterly back in the council chamber. "Not our weapons, not our shields. Our nerve," the Kavari envoy whispered. "They're seeing who among us blinks first." AVD spike. One by one, planetary governors of Sereth began issuing soft evacuations. Not officially, not publicly, just quiet movements, family transfers, shelter preparations. Because if Telonis had vanished without a spark, what would Sereth's silence sound like? Valher stood before the high viewport staring at the Terran ships. "They won't shoot," he muttered. And yet, he ordered the orbital cannons to cool. A show of de-escalation. To Earth, to the Watchers. But no reply came. Because replying would mean they cared. And Earth's most terrifying weapon was indifference. Not rage, not conquest. But watching you, panic over nothing. Until your own fear did the work for them. The dreadnoughts lingered a few moments longer. Then one, just one, peeled away. No signal, no attack, just departure. Valher collapsed into his chair, not from relief, but because he knew they came to measure our courage and found nothing they needed to fear. "They'll have to respond this time," Chancellor Virex hissed. The chamber pulsed with desperation, dressed as formality. The council had prepared a peace summit on the neutral moon of Lysar, a hollow act, veiled in elegance but rigged with pressure fields, auto-targeting nodes, and interceptors cloaked above the crater walls. "They won't resist a diplomatic invitation," Virex insisted, adjusting his ceremonial robes. "Humans crave legitimacy." "They don't crave anything," the Kavari envoy muttered. "They arrive when they want to. If they want to." AVD spike. Time passed. The crater remained quiet. No ships. No approach. Nothing. Counselor Drex fidgeted. "Perhaps a delay? Terran engines are unreliable." A comms officer looked up. Pale. "No, sir. They received the invitation." "Then where are they?" A sharp chime rang out. A delayed transmission. Audio. "Only human voice, female, calm, almost amused. We heard you, we just didn't care." And that was the message. Not rejection, not threat. Just that Earth chose not to show up. AVD spike. Then the real terror began. Above the Lysar moon, the cloaked council ships began blinking offline, one by one. No alarms, no impacts, just blindness, sensors fade, targeting loss, full system silence. "They're jamming us," barked the lead tactician. "No. Worse," whispered the synth delegate. "They're observing from inside our jamming field. Signature line. They didn't walk into the trap. They were already watching it fail." On the council ship, internal hull lights began flickering. Gravity pulsed. Clocks desynced by microseconds. Not attacks. Reminders. That Terran presence didn't need to be loud. It only needed to exist unanswered. AVD spike. Then came the visuals. From the crater walls, the bodies of council agents stationed for the ambush appeared. Stunned, alive, confused. None of them remembered being struck. None heard anything. They just blacked out and woke up with human insignia spray-painted across their gear. A skull. One word beneath it. "Remember, Virex gripped the table edge. They mock us now. No, the Kavari envoy replied, staring at the loop. They mark us like teachers, like executioners with patience. Counselor Drex finally broke. We should retaliate, launch preemptives, overwhelm Earth before they disappear again. The synth delegate did not respond, because the Council's override codes had just stopped working. All fleet deployment requests bounced. Every drone command failed. Earth hadn't hacked them. Earth had never tried, because Earth didn't need to disable the Council's weapons. They made the Council too scared to use them. Psychological. Cliffhanger. Back in the crater, a single transmission beacon activated. No human ships in sight. Just a recorded message. A whisper. You wanted peace to look like submission. We don't do that. A final laugh. Short. Not cruel. Just finished. And then silence. And it wasn't Earth that was left speechless. It was everyone else. The Zarn Imperium had always prided itself on tradition. Their war hymns were older than most species, their battle formations sacred, and their weapons synchronized to symphonies composed for conquest. So when the Council hesitated, the Zarn did what they always did. They acted. Strike their outer colonies. Remind them what fear feels like. High General Sortan growled, standing tall beneath the glowing banners of his forefathers. No Council approval needed. No more silence. No more trembling before apes with toys. And so the Warfleet moved. 32 cruisers, 11 dreadnoughts, and the pride of Zarn engineering. The Songblade. They aimed for Proxima 9. A Terran colony, unarmed, barely defended. Perfect AVD spike. The first anomaly appeared before their weapons activated. The stars blinked, not flickered, blinked, as if someone had closed and opened the sky. Then, a delay. Milliseconds stretched unnaturally long. Bridge clocks froze. Missile, guidance systems locked on. Then forgot what they were aiming at. And then, nothing. No impact, no return fire, just stillness. One Zarn officer screamed, not from pain, but from pressure, not gravity, not heat, a sensation of being looked at, AVD spike. Far above them, unseen, in every sensor something stirred, a shadow that wasn't cast, a ship that didn't exist in schematics, charts, or logic, and yet, there it was. Colossal black metal bones glowing faintly with blue inscriptions, human markings. But wrong. Ancient. Like Earth had unearthed it, whispered to it, and let it choose to fly again. Then, a whisper in every Zarn comms system. Not audio. Not language, a thought, a feeling. You moved first. Now you don't move at all. All 32 Zarn cruisers stopped, engines still burning, crew still conscious, but everything else, frozen. The Songblade attempted a warp tear. It opened, only halfway, and then closed again, folding the ship's nose into its rear. No explosion, just rewriting. Signature line. They didn't destroy the fleet. They erased the moment it attacked. In the Council chamber, horror spiraled. We've lost contact with the Zarn Armada, someone shrieked. No debris, the synth delegate confirmed. Just vanished. They were halfway to the target. They never got there, said Rahun, because Earth didn't meet them in space. A silence. They met them in time. AVD, spike. Back in Zarn space, one transmission flickered through. Just one. A single frame. From an ancient Terran film archive, its meaning is lost to most. A man, smiling, holding a clock. Behind him, everything is burning. Captioned. You should have listened when we laughed, and that was all the galaxy received. No declaration, no reply. Just time skipping a heartbeat, and an empire that never got to hear the shot it fired. The emergency conclave was called in whispers, not through declarations, not in public halls, just terrified voices meeting in sealed rooms, wondering aloud if this was how gods felt when their prayers went unanswered. We give them territory, Chancellor Vex said. Let them choose 10 systems, non-strategic, symbolic. They've already bypassed our maps, muttered Drex. They don't need our systems. Then tech, Vex insisted. We offer our knowledge cores, all of them, data they've never seen. They already know what we know, Erhun said, pale. And what we've hidden. AVD spike. The Kavari envoy stood last. We tried to control, then traps, then retaliation. Now we offer gifts. Has it not occurred to any of you? She looked around the room. You cannot bargain with something that never asked you for anything. The silence in the chamber was different now. Not political, personal, the galaxy's greatest powers begging to be seen and still. No answer. AVD spike. Until Earth did respond. Not with a ship, not with a weapon, with a memory. Every council capital received the same burst. A moment, looped in 4D replay. A human child standing on a colony world, holding her father's hand, pointing. Up at the stars, he says. They think silence is weakness. No, the child replies. It's patience. That was it. Just that. And then? The second burst, a timeline. Every insult, every dismissal, every sanction, every dismissed envoy, every human death was left unanswered because it was below protocol. And beneath it, a signature, not from a faction. Not from Earth's high command, just 3 words. We remember everything, AVD spike. Drex collapsed into his chair. They're not responding to what we're offering, he whispered. They're responding to what we did. Vex trembled. All. This time we thought they wanted power. No, Rahun said. Signature line. They wanted us to feel powerless, just long enough to understand what it meant. Outside, sensors detected Terran movement, but not a fleet, not even warships. Civilian vessels. Dozens. Appearing in council-adjacent systems, landing without permission, unarmed, unbothered. They were no longer asking for access. They were returning. Psychological. Hook in the final report submitted to the Council's archives before its encryption failed, a single entry was recorded. Observation: Earth never declared war. They just stopped acting like guests, and across the galaxy in cities built on treaties and false superiority, lights dimmed, not from sabotage, but from remembrance. Because when gods ask for mercy, sometimes silence is the answer. There was no battle, no final charge, no detonation, no anthem, just a message, delivered galaxy-wide through every frequency known, and some the Council didn't even recognize. We never came to lead. We came to live. But you taught us what happens to quiet guests in loud halls. The Council's great chamber sat in silence, not ceremonial silence, real silence. No whispering translators, no blinking interfaces, no murmuring dignitaries, just stillness, because by now they all knew. The message wasn't a threat. It was a closing statement. AVD spike. High Minister Erol was the first to speak, voice trembling. Then, is it over? Erhun shook his head slowly. Over? No. He pointed to the star map. Dozens of Terran ships, all of them leaving, vanishing into deep space. Not toward capitals. Not toward spoils away. They're not occupying, he said. They're disengaging. They didn't want control, Drex whispered. No, said the Kavari envoy, her voice solemn. They wanted understanding. And when they didn't get it, signature line, they left, knowing they'd never be forgotten. AVD spike. A final burst came through, one last feed. One last gift, a voice familiar, humans, male. 3,000 years of peace. Beat. Peace doesn't mean silence. The screen cut to black. Then a single sound, laughter. But this time, not human. A synthetic laugh, echoed, imitated, council systems. Replaying it, trying to understand it, trying to decode it, trying to learn how to never be afraid of it again. But it was too late. because the lesson had already been written, not in code, not in war, but in every moment the galaxy hesitated, every second it doubted Earth's restraint, and every time it heard laughter and didn't ask why. Psychological cliffhanger. Now, Earth was gone. Not defeated, not driven out, just us gone. Their systems shut off, their diplomats are silent, their fleets are ghost-like. Not hidden, just uninterested. The Council's final report tried to name it, this phenomenon. They called it the Echo Doctrine. But the people who survived, the ones who lived through ships vanishing, time folding, and civilizations going mute, they didn't give it a title. They gave it a memory. Because from now on, any time someone laughed before a war, the galaxy paused and asked, "Is that human?" And that was how Earth ended the war, by never starting one. They laughed, then they left.